We have our panel, which is ready now, so we can start just in time. With just a few minutes late. Sorry about that. So, welcome, Faisal. Good morning. Could you maybe just introduce yourself for the beginning? So you're working for Cloud Stack. Cloud what? Cloud what?
Cloud what? R&D manager.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Pierre Joyet. I work with Microsoft for the Open Source Tech Center, which is another part of the open source business inside Microsoft.
So you joined Microsoft a few years ago?
6.5 years ago, working mainly on the web stack part, so PHP and everything around the web stack.
With a strong background from PHP, I think.
Yes, PHP and all libraries and dependencies used by PHP. So, yeah.
All right.
Everything open source mainly.
Good morning, Jean-Pierre. Jean-Pierre Lenné is Compatible One project leader.
That's it. Thanks.
Just that?
Oh yeah, that's enough.
Okay.
The rest is free time.
So please, when you speak, you put the mic very close to your mouth, because we have web attendees also. And so welcome Nicolas Barcet. Good morning.
Good morning.
You're Vice President of Product for Innovance, correct?
That's correct.
Perfect. We have also John Brilliant from Sodexo, CTO of Sodexo, which will join us. Can someone get him? He's in the hall, I think. And Jules-Henri Gavetti, good morning. You are the CEO of Icula. Good morning. So in the next couple of years, I think the statistic says 92% of organizations will use some form of cloud infrastructure, whether it's private, public, or hybrid. So this morning debate is about hybrid clouds. Chances are we will use more and more cloud and probably mobile application on the cloud in the coming months. Gartner Group predicts that digital tablet annual sales will also overcome the PC sales by 2015. So it's pretty soon. And the Internet of Things also is showing a rocket start in the cloud. So we can see the QR codes, the RFID applications, for instance, electronic wallet, Google Glasses, you name it. And so a lot of new objects will complete this list with more sensors and probably also smart closes. So how those smart objects will find storage and compute resource, probably in the cloud.
I hope.
You hope. Okay, so I'm pleased to introduce our panelists, and now also John Brilliant. Welcome, John. Good morning. You are the CTO of Sodexo Group, which is a large French and international group. So welcome. And as you hear, we will ask you what is maybe your background and how did you came to the cloud computing?
Is that a question for me?
Yes. Please.
Oh, well, my name is John Brown, as you said. I'm initially Belgian, but I've traveled quite a lot around the world, and I started my career in California as a software developer. So I did 13 years in the software development area. And we opened an affiliate here in Europe, and since then I've come back to Europe to work for large companies like Sodexo. I worked for Alstom as telecoms director, and then as managing director for Teamtel for Pinot Printemps Redoute, which is Kering now. And then I was hired by Sodexo to help Sodexo go towards a globalization of IT, mainly infrastructures. And we're now 6 years down the road, and we adopted a very bold approach at that stage, but it was successful because we completely adopted the cloud approach.
And a specific thing at the Sodexo Group is that 90% of the employees are out of the office, in fact.
Yes, absolutely. The Sodexo Group is very large, 420,000 plus employees, but more than 90% of those employees are on customer sites, which are about 34,000 worldwide in 80 countries.
So the information infrastructure is vital and critical for them.
It's, well, I mean,
to manage their
the
services.
business of Sodexo is the service à la personne. It's really direct towards the customer facing. So critical, yes, no. It's not that critical on the site up until now because it was really very simple services, cleaning, food, you know, like clothes or whatever. But it's getting much more sophisticated as technology is being embraced. So the traditional approach of having PCs with applications with data that have to be backed up, that have to be secured, is too old-fashioned now, and we're trying to promote now to switch towards application and data somewhere on the cloud and with mobile devices, so that our site managers can be in front of the customer during the whole day, instead of having to be interrupted from time to time, having to go down in the basement in front of the PCs and printers and faxes, and which is taking business away from Sodexo.
Okay, thank you. I can see now in the dark Brian Amedro. Welcome, Brian. Good morning. You are a cloud architect at Activion, which is a spin-off of Inria, correct?
Yes.
And specialized in distributed computing.
Yes.
Okay, can you maybe just give us a few details about yourself and the cloud expertise you provide to the company?
Yes, so actually I done a PhD in University of Nice Antipolis about distributed systems and HPC numerical applications. So I work on grids. On one the problematic I work on was to match applicative topologies with real network topology to handle latencies problems. And then I moved to clouds with the provisioning of external resources, which offers the same problems for distributed applications. And it conducts me to develop some intelligent provisioning strategies, which I'm trying to push into the proactive parallel suite.
Okay, thank you. So to open this debate, I would like to try with you a definition of hybrid cloud. Faisal, would you like to start? Do you think every manager in the company see the exact same cloud, the CFO, for instance, the CIO, and the users?
Yeah, should be. But maybe a few words about our cloud perspective. So hybrid cloud for us is more than a connection between private and public cloud. So it means for us as a public cloud provider, it means openness to everything. And as a public cloud provider, we will face actually private clouds for sure, but also cloud broker in the future. Also what I call cloud watchers. So Jean-Pierre know what I mean by that. And for sure also there will be connection with other public cloud providers. So hybridization could be extended from this point of view. So we have to face many players, not only private clouds, and this openness could be seen and could be designed from that point of view.
So do you notice different expectations from the end users, the corporations that will subscribe to an hybrid cloud?
So from the hybrid cloud point of view, we are actually, let's say, in slave position as a public provider. So we have to be orchestrated by other technologies on the private side mainly, and these technologies must offer this seamless integration between private and public cloud, and it should be seamless and user-friendly usage from many point of view. So for sure, the CIO and the administrator, the company CIO should have more tools to administrate, to monitor, to allocate resources, etc. But the end user and CIO should use this private and public cloud mix seamlessly.
Okay, Pierre, maybe one word on scalability, because when we think about hybrid cloud, it's often a scalable application that we think of.
Maybe 2 words then.
Yes, probably.
About what you just said about private or public clouds, I think there is 2 layers, 2 main problems. There is one problem.
No, close to your mouse, please.
Oh, sorry. There is two questions. I have met many companies that can't, for example, use public cloud for legal reasons, especially in healthcare systems, for data protection and so on. And for example, in Germany, they have to be hosted in Germany or have to do the hosting themselves. So there is definitely a need for a private cloud in this area, using the same tools, be OpenStack or virtualization with Hyper-V and so on. So, and the need there is, for my definition of hybrid cloud is, all enterprises have many softwares, legacy, new softwares on many operating systems, on many solutions. So we need something working with as much as possible systems. So be Windows, be Azure, BSD, Solaris, and so on. Mm-hmm. So this is my own definition of hybrid cloud.
And do you see PHP strategic application going to the...
Oh, I do a lot. Well, I'm a PHP geek, so sorry if I talk too much about PHP. But the main reason...
Moving to Azure? Or,
we do support PHP on Azure, be on Windows or Unix. Okay. So, and the main reason I began to work with Microsoft was about PHP, because basically PHP is 82% of the market for the web application. So whether we like it or not, we have to take care about PHP. We always forget that many internet applications, for example, for credit management, for booking system and so on, are written using PHP on the backend servers and using JavaScript and so on for the front end. And many of these servers use hybrid solutions using, for example, SQL Server for the databases, for all the management part, and other technology for other parts of the web stack. So that's why we are living in an hybrid world anyway, with or without cloud, since a decade minimum.
Jean-Pierre, do you see common needs for hybrid clouds or regarding...
Okay, I would be, let's say, a bit provocative and transparent on that. From the perspective of a cloud service broker enabler, I don't care about hybrid. Okay, for me, everything is service. Everything has to be served on a secure manner. And it's more about consumer's choice to be able to take its workload wherever he wants. Now, why do we speak about hybrid? In fact, it's because in front of disruptive technology, there are always a path for the consumer to adopt a technology before it becomes mainstream. I won't paraphrase crossing the chasm and things like that, but so we think that it's important for people to be, let's say, quite comfortable with the technology they adopt. So they consider that private is more secured. Okay, it's a perception, and can be true sometimes. We consider cloud as a good way to make a better usage of our infrastructure, and it's in the trend of consolidation that they have lived for 10 to 15 years now. And it's a natural path to a complete cloud, because the bad point with private is you don't solve your CapEx versus OpEx issue. You still have to manage your own infrastructure. The good point is that you keep your resources. I mean, you don't have to sack people or to, okay, so you keep the people you like to work with. And finally, you also, let's say, are quite flexible in terms of the kind of service you want to deliver to your customers. So at the end of the day, I think the CIOs, CFOs of the world are ready to outsource their computing resources, but they're not ready to outsource their governance of their IT systems. And that's where I think we can play, as cloud service broker enablers, we can play a role, and I think that's our mission. And also it's to blur the boundaries between all those, let's say, typologies of clouds.
Nick, one word on this, probably. When do you recommend the hybrid approach?
So the first thing is, I think when we say hybrid cloud, we are using a word, cloud, which is way overloaded, and we don't know what we're talking about. We have to think when we design something about whether we are trying to bring hybrid management of multiple cloud infrastructures or an hybrid application that will span across multiple clouds. And these are two very, very different problems which needs very different approaches. So once we decide what we're talking about, and let's talk about hybrid management of multiple clouds, the main requirement that customers have is exactly as Jean-Pierre said. I want to be able to control what is happening on the clouds as if it was one. Meaning, I need to have the financial reporting, I need to have the technical reporting, I need to offer a front end to my users, which seems to allow deploying the same application the same way anywhere, which is a completely different problem from the problem of how do I make my application available simultaneously on multiple clouds in order to do very high availability, proximity delivery, or eventually cloud bursting.
Jean-Louis, do you agree with this? Are we speaking, in fact, when we speak hybrid cloud, about cloud service governance for the companies?
Yes, I'm agree with everything that they say. The main goal for me is the API. I mean, the real business will be to merge all the API on the market in front of one API. Because if you have a customer like Sodexo, if they have workload that work in the cloud inside a company, like it can be a private cloud or a part of a public cloud, but if they don't easily move this workload in the cloud with the same API, they will not move, or they will stay in public cloud, they will stay in private cloud, they will not get the power of the hybrid cloud. And I think really the main goal is the API, and after all the software around management of this hybrid cloud.
John, I think we've mentioned also external users of your clouds, and in particular, I think Nokia and Sodexo are partnering on the same cloud.
Yes, I like what I heard here, because we always try to put ourselves at Sodexo and my team on the end user side. We try to hide the technology behind it. Yes, there are CIOs. I'm not so sure that they are willing to outsource so much. They prefer the comfort zone of keeping it in-house and having the private cloud approach. And yes, there's a lot of competition now for those CIOs and those traditional teams of very high quality services that are online available, that have a given price, and that the business say, you know, why don't you integrate that? The hybrid, I think, is a way of defining that the world is getting a bit blurred, and that when you look at anyway at all our devices, whether it's data centers, whether it's PCs, whether it's mobiles, the data and the applications are getting a bit all over the place. The example about Nokia is that we had to enable quickly for 30,000 users from Nokia worldwide to be able to interact directly on an application that was hosted in our private cloud. And through a federation of services with ADFS, we connected the user base from Nokia to our user base, thanks to what we see more as a hybrid cloud approach to make that data and that application available to both sides immediately, instead of trying to build something specific for our customer. And so we enable that. And so that's what we see more as a hybrid approach, instead of building something specific. Now,
that was identity federation between two groups of users, in fact.
Yes, I think that's the core of. I guess that's part of the discussions here. Is that we see that as long as we can identify the user, and we can give him or her a profile, then we can provide a set of applications, whether they're in our private cloud, in a public cloud, or in a hybrid model. And I think that's the core now, that all these infrastructures are getting blurred, and we just have to make sure that the access and the creation and the maintenance, the evolutions of the data of the different files and databases remain in a secure environment. And I think that's the key for us now.
Okay, Brian, to let us understand maybe what are the limits of the hybrid cloud, is there some services that you would keep away from this approach?
Well, actually, I think that we should not push the debate on the cloud uniquely for this kind of things. I mean that, for example, for security concern about data, sometimes, like Jean-Pierre said, I guess, a company a small company maybe is not capable of offering such a high level of security by itself. So it is a problematic of cost, and sometimes this company will not be able to protect herself by itself. For example, it's fun because Google forbid its engineers to use Dropbox, for example, for such security concern. They claim that they don't want to put private data on a tier infrastructure. So,
Jean-Pierre, you want a reaction regarding security?
I know what you mean about Google, but I think it's a miscommunication issue that they had, and they correct it very quickly.
Faisal, how do you think the security experts, the CSO, see the cloud today?
Yeah, my comment is not about security, but I would like to add, so I completely aligned with what was said. So this seamless environment, this cloud continuum. But there is maybe a few exceptions. And I would like to emphasize that when it comes to this context of hybrid cloud, so from legal point of view, there is difference. So from technical point of view, okay, there is a continuum. But from responsibilities, legal aspects, there is difference. So in that case, we see the difference between the two, and there is no continuum, actually. And when it comes also to billing, for example, there is also a little bit differences between hybrid and private. So from technical point of view, the continuum, I completely agree with that. But from legal responsibilities and billing, support, ticketing, etc., there is more than technical aspects, more than just APIs for provisioning resources. That's the point.
Yeah, maybe a word on security or also cloud standards, because they are linked.
From a security point of view, and we saw that with PHP as a web app, because that's the first entry point, so to say. It has been underestimated for the last 5 years. I mean, the problem with scalability, you asked me a question about scalability. Yes, they try to scale everything, performance, time to respond, and so on. The only thing that many companies, hosters, data centers, what they did not scale is the security management. Because the amount of issues we can have when we have, for example, let's say a breach inside the AVS infrastructure, which impact it could have or already had. So that's the kind of issues, I mean, we are only at the beginning of a discussion how we can make a secure public or hybrid or whatever we call it, infrastructure, application, and so on. Stuff like merging many identity federations from many companies and so on. It also has a huge impact on internal policy or internal security. What happens if, when, and so on. And that's something I think we're only at the beginning of the discussion. But it's an open topic.
Just security things didn't really change before the cloud and after the cloud. That's people still have some data that they want to keep inside, and they will keep inside. Yeah, some like financial data, personal data, they will stay inside. And what you put outside of the company, I'm 15 years in hosting, and we have website, we have public information, and they put outside this information. If you don't change your security politics, it's good. Don't change it because it's cloud. Don't let people say, okay, it's cloud, we will review everything. No, you have to keep the same things if it's cloud or not.
Okay. Jean-Pierre.
Yes, I think we had a good wake-up call, and it's not a pre-cloud or post-cloud, it's a pre-Prism and post-Prism. I think it's quite interesting to see the way people have reacted to that, because in fact, not everybody knew about it, but it became very, you can touch it. Okay, so it's very important now. People have that in mind, so they know that hiding everything is very difficult, but they have to put their best effort to make it as good as possible. And it's true not only for individuals, but for governments.
Yes, and it's about company rules, security rules, in fact. Do we have the mean or standards in security that allow the company to push its own rules up to the cloud? John, what do you do with security in the cloud?
Well, I'm still on the previous question because I think the nice thing about the cloud event internally within a company is that the security subject is on the table. Before it was in a cloud, in a private infrastructure and saying, well, it's kind of secure, whatever. Now, when we have a meeting where there's a CIO and a CFO, they both now say towards my team, okay, John, your team has an approach of reducing cost and improving quality of service, but what about the security? And it's open on the table. Where's the data? What's the reversibility? Are our policies adequate? And so it's really, because they are, we must admit now that the IT has always been a bit behind serving customers. There's always been, I want this functionality, I want this service, etc. Now the cloud event saying, I want this, 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 this. And so putting a lot of pressure on the IT teams to go towards their services, but there is still that security subject now that is clearly between the IT teams and the business, and it's a good thing. One thing I'd like to just add on that is that I think we've got a lot of senior people here in IT, and we've always been reactive, defensive towards security. Firewalls for intrusion detection, anti-spam, antivirus. It's like preventive, it's defensive. I take advantage of this community to say we should, the best defense is the attack, is we should have, for example, why don't we have all our email services encrypted, from day one, just as a standard between us, that we raise at least, when we sent in the past envelopes, we sent letters, we put it in an envelope and we sealed it, and even with wax, so that there was a certain level of confidentiality. Now we're just sending email, all over the world. So I'm asking here this community, why don't we raise the bar, encrypt, and that when a person creates data, that it is, I personally would say, this is a personal information, and I tag it, and I encrypt it, and I will give it to a certain community, my friends, my family, or this is professional, it's tagged with Sodexo, and it will be able to go within Sodexo with a specific community within Sodexo. So what I'm asking here is to reverse a bit the way we address security, and that the NSA stories, well, we at least have a higher level of defense by being ahead of the game instead of reactive.
Mm-hmm. Nick, in one word, when we move to the cloud, we not only move data, but workloads. I mean, application, operating system underneath. Portability and interoperability are becoming very important, and you were at the Cloud Interoperability Week. Do you think the open source, open cloud solutions are leading the way? Showing an example?
So, obviously, interoperability, if not demonstrated at least by one implementation, which is open source, will never happen. And interoperability can happen at the API level, can happen at the orchestration level, can happen at the management layer level. And in fact, I don't think where it happens is important, but it is the services that it allows people to deliver. When I'm encountering CIOs nowadays, their main concern is not anymore about whether the data they have inside is secure. I think they've defined that pretty well. But their main concern is that they are facing a new kind of competition, which is the software as a service competition, the infrastructure as a service competition, where users are creating shadow IT. And this is causing a huge security problem because they have absolutely no control on what's happening on this shadow IT. And in order to go against shadow IT, building tools that are going to allow the CIOs to enable those functionality that the users are crying for, while maintaining control, is the key thing that we can deliver nowadays. And this is what we are driving toward. This is what we are being asked to do. And I don't think the idea of hybrid cloud is so great in itself. It is great in the way that it will allow us to solve this problem of shadow IT for the CIOs.
Jean-Pierre, do you see an increasing adoption of open standards in the cloud arena?
Nobody cares about open standards. The only open standard they care about is HTTP. Okay?
Yes.
Then, I mean, that's the only open standard, by the definition, is HTTP. All the rest is, they like standards because everybody can have his own. And that's really interesting to understand. But on the other end, do we really need a standard? As you said, it's more about APIs. What will be the most predominant API in the world? Amazon is playing the game very well. Can we remap APIs into a single interface? These are the real questions, and yes, this is feasible. So, in the beginning, when we launched Open Source Cloudware Initiative, we thought that open cloud would be the result of the equation of the addition of open standards plus open standards, plus open source, sorry. It was a bit naive, a bit candid, because the reality check is that nobody really cares about open standards. What they do care, it's about interchangeability. Okay, the fact that you can go from one provider to another and getting the same level of services, at least the same level of services, minimal services, and that's all. So if you can solve the problem of interoperability by remapping those different things, you have a part of the solution. Mm-hmm. And I agree with that, with what has been stated by Nicolas, is to show that you have to show it in open source. So you can prove that it's fully transparent. But the way you remap these APIs or you use those connectors are totally transparent and there is no, let's say, hidden stuff in there. So open source, we trust that open source, compatible one, and open standards are key because we play a role of intermediary. So we want to demonstrate that there is no locking at all. So if you know the standard, you know the API. And if you get the source, you know also what the source is doing. So you can trust. So it's more a question of trustworthy environment than real technical needs. And I repeat, the industry today do not care about open standards.
Does it require new skills in the IT department to compare these SLAs between providers, for instance?
It's a nightmare. It's really a nightmare. The contracts are very dissimilar. I mean, the pricing methods, if you look at Amazon, which is the biggest example in there, there are 17 different instantiations plus added services, plus they added, every day they add new services and new pricing and new billing and things like that. So that's why when you refer to cloud watchers, it's something interesting. We'll see the emergence of, let's say, a new business, a new role in the cloud environments is people benchmarking the different offerings in order for people to be able to compare apple to apple. Because if you want to compare apple to apple, what the providers are providing today, you'll die. You have to hire 10 guys just to go through the different services and to update it every day.
That's a great example. Cloud Screener.
Yeah, Cloud Screener is one good thing. There is a Cloud Harmony and et cetera, et cetera. These are the kind of things that are very necessity to drive the choice of the consumers.